The Book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Bible, derives its name from the censuses of Israel's tribes detailed in its opening and midway sections. However, it is much more than a record of numbers. It recounts the journey of the Israelites from Mount Sinai to the borders of the Promised Land, chronicling their challenges, rebellions, and God's faithfulness. Numbers bridges the gap between the covenant at Sinai and the entry into Canaan, illustrating the struggles of a people learning to trust and obey God. The book is divided into three major sections: preparation for the journey, chapters 1 to 10, wandering in the wilderness, chapters 11 to 25, and final preparations for entering Canaan, chapters 26 to 36. Number 1. Preparation for the journey, chapters 1 to 10. A. The first census and tribal organization, chapters 1 to 4. Numbers begins with a census of Israel's men eligible for military service, totaling 603,550. This census highlights the organized and purposeful movement of the Israelites as a divinely chosen nation preparing to conquer Canaan. The Levites, excluded from military duties, are counted separately and designated for service in the tabernacle. Each clan within the tribe of Levi is assigned specific responsibilities related to the transport and care of the sacred objects. B. Purity and dedication laws, chapters 5 to 6. Laws are given to maintain the purity of the camp, reflecting the presence of a holy God among the people. These include removal of the unclean, ritual exclusion of those with contagious diseases or impurity. The test for adultery, a procedure for resolving suspicions of marital unfaithfulness. The Nazirite vow, a vow of dedication to God involving abstinence from wine, avoidance of haircuts, and avoiding contact with corpses. The priestly blessing, one of the most famous passages in Numbers, concludes this section. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Numbers 6:24-26. C. The tabernacle and departure, chapters 7 to 10. Offerings are made by the leaders of each tribe to dedicate the tabernacle. The Israelites celebrate their first Passover since leaving Egypt. God's guidance is signified by the cloud over the tabernacle, which lifts when it is time to move. Trumpet blasts are used to signal the camp's movements, emphasizing order and divine leadership. 2. Wandering in the wilderness, chapters 11 to 25. A. Complaints and rebellion begin, chapters 11 to 12. Despite God's provision, the Israelites begin to complain about hardships. Craving meat, dissatisfied with manna, they demand meat. God provides quail but punishes their greed with a plague. Miriam and Aaron's rebellion. Miriam and Aaron challenge Moses' leadership. God defends Moses, striking Miriam with leprosy as punishment, though she is healed after Moses intercedes. B. The spies and rebellion at Kadesh, chapters 13-14. At God's command, 12 spies are sent to scout the land of Canaan. 10 of them return with reports of fortified cities and powerful inhabitants, discouraging the people. Only Joshua and Caleb express faith that God will give them victory. The Israelites, gripped by fear, rebel against entering the land. As a result, God decrees that the current generation will wander in the wilderness for 40 years until they die, with only Joshua and Caleb permitted to enter Canaan. C. Laws and punishments, chapters 15-19. Interspersed with narratives are additional laws, including offerings and Sabbath observance. Several key events underscore the seriousness of obedience. The Sabbath breaker. A man is executed for gathering wood on the Sabbath, illustrating the sanctity of God's commands. Korah's rebellion. Korah and his followers challenge Moses and Aaron's authority. God demonstrates his chosen leaders by causing the ground to swallow the rebels. The budding of Aaron's staff. To affirm Aaron's priestly role, God causes his staff to sprout blossoms and almonds. D. Water, serpents, and victory, chapters 20-21. The waters of Meribah. When the people complain of thirst, Moses strikes a rock to bring forth water, disobeying God's command to speak to it. For this act of disobedience, Moses is denied entry into the Promised Land. The bronze serpent. After the Israelites complain again, God sends venomous snakes. When they repent, Moses crafts a bronze serpent. Those who look at it are healed, prefiguring Christ's redemptive work. John 3:14-15. The Israelites begin to experience military victories, defeating the Canaanite king of Arad, Sihon, and Og, foreshadowing their conquest of the Promised Land. Balaam and Balak, chapters 22 to 25. Balak, the king of Moab, fears Israel's advancing power and hires the prophet Balaam to curse them. However, God intervenes and Balaam blesses Israel instead. Balaam's donkey famously speaks to him during the journey, rebuking his resistance to God's will. Despite Balaam's blessings, the Israelites fall into sin by worshiping Baal and engaging in immorality with Moabite women. This provokes God's wrath, resulting in a plague that ends when Phinehas zealously defends God's honor. 3. Final preparations for entering Canaan, chapters 26 to 36. The second census, chapter 26. A new census is conducted, reflecting the population of the new generation eligible to enter Canaan. The total number is 601,730, slightly lower than the first census. This signifies a fresh start with a generation that had not participated in the rebellions. Leadership transition, chapters 27 to 30. Joshua appointed as Moses' successor. Recognizing his impending death, Moses commissions Joshua as the leader who will guide Israel into the Promised Land. Inheritance laws. Specific laws are given regarding property rights, including provisions for daughters when no male heirs exist. Vows. Regulations emphasize the sanctity of vows made to God. Conquest and settlement plans. Chapters 31 to 36. Victory over Midian. The Israelites wage war against the Midianites, punishing them for their role in leading Israel into sin. This campaign underscores God's justice. Division of the land. The Transjordan tribes, Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, request to settle east of the Jordan River. Moses agrees on the condition that they assist in the conquest of Canaan. Boundaries of Canaan. God provides detailed instructions for dividing the land, specifying tribal boundaries. Cities of refuge. 6 cities are designated for those who commit manslaughter, offering protection and ensuring justice. Inheritance laws reaffirmed. Final instructions about the inheritance rights of daughters and land retention within tribes conclude the book. Key themes in Numbers. 1. God's faithfulness and judgment. Despite Israel's repeated failures, God remains committed to his covenant, though he disciplines disobedience. 2. Leadership and intercession. Moses exemplifies the qualities of a mediator between God and his people, pointing to the ultimate mediator, Christ. 3. Preparation and testing. The wilderness experience tests Israel's faith and prepares them for their future as God's holy nation in the Promised Land. 4. God's holiness. The laws, rituals, and punishments highlight the holiness of God and the need for purity in his people. Conclusion. The Book of Numbers is a profound narrative of transition and preparation. It reveals human weakness and God's enduring faithfulness as the Israelites journey from Sinai to the brink of the Promised Land. Through its censuses, laws, and stories, Numbers teaches lessons about obedience, trust, and the challenges of living as God's covenant people. The book sets the stage for the fulfillment of God's promises in the conquest of Canaan, demonstrating that even amidst rebellion and wandering, God's plans remain steadfast.